Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a big question. Is Jamaica's housing market still for Jamaicans? There are two major trends shaking things up right now. First, the government is looking at new laws for Airbnbs. And second, more and more properties are being rented or sold in US dollars. At first, these might seem like separate issues, but they're actually connected. And together, they tell a story about how tourism, foreign money, and investor interests are changing the housing landscape here in Jamaica. Let's start with Airbnbs. Over the past few years, short-term rentals have exploded across the island. On the positive side, homeowners can earn extra income, and tourists have more options than ever before. But there's a downside. Many long-term rentals are disappearing because properties are being converted into vacation rentals. This isn't just a small inconvenience. It's pushing up rental prices for ordinary Jamaicans. In some communities, families are finding it harder and harder to find an affordable home because landlords see more profit in catering to tourists than locals. That's where the government's new regulations come in, aiming to control the spread of short-term rentals. But the question remains, will these policies protect locals, or are they too little, too late? A new bill being pushed by the Jamaican government is sparking concern among homeowners, renters, and small entrepreneurs across the island. The Jamaica Tourist Board, JTB, Act amendments, currently making their way through Parliament, could reshape the country's short-term rental industry, and not necessarily for the better. On paper, the bill promises to bring order to the booming Airbnb sector. But behind the curtain, it's raising a familiar question. Is this about fairness, or is this about protecting big hotel interests first? Where is this really coming from? The hotel industry in Jamaica has long had the ear of policymakers. For years, operators have complained that Airbnb hosts aren't playing by the same rules. No licensing, no taxes, no oversight. And now, with Airbnb reportedly capturing over 30% of Jamaica's overnight visitors, those complaints have turned into legislation. Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett claims the bill will level the playing field, but critics argue it's more about preserving hotel dominance than protecting tourists, or the Jamaican people. After all, these aren't major corporations running Airbnbs. They're teachers, nurses, retirees, young professionals, ordinary Jamaicans trying to make ends meet. What does the bill actually say? The proposed changes to the Jamaica Tourist Board Act will require mandatory licensing and registration for all short-term rentals, including those with just one room. Fines for non-compliance, up to 1 million Jamaican dollars or 12 months in prison for 1 to 50 room operators. Even higher penalties for larger or repeat violations. The government says this is about safety, regulation, and accountability. But to many, it sounds like punishment for entrepreneurship, especially in a country where people are already struggling to survive. Here's where things get serious. 1. Airbnb is squeezing the rental market. Landlords are increasingly ditching long-term rentals to chase higher profits from tourists. Why rent your house for 70,000 Jamaican dollars per month when you can earn that in 5 nights on Airbnb? The result? Skyrocketing rents. Kingston, Ocho Rios, Montego Bay, Portmore. City centers are becoming unaffordable for the average Jamaican. Young people, single parents, and low-income families are being priced out of basic shelter. How can we pay $100,000 a month in rent when the average young Jamaican doesn't even earn half that? Frustrated Reddit user 2. First-time buyers are locked out. Investors are scooping up houses not to live in, but to rent to tourists. This drives up property prices and shrinks inventory for locals trying to own their first home. It's a vicious cycle. Can't afford to rent, can't afford to buy. Airbnb didn't create the housing crisis, but it's pouring gas on a fire that was already burning. The government says the bill is about accountability. But let's be honest. When was the last time the JTB cracked down this hard on hotels that underpay staff, underreport earnings, or breach environmental rules? Airbnb hosts, the very Jamaicans trying to rise above poverty, are facing million-dollar fines and jail time while massive resorts keep expanding with tax breaks and foreign investment. This isn't regulation. This is selective regulation, and it's hurting the people who need help the most. Where's the public consultation? What's missing from this bill is empathy and transparency. Where are the town halls? Where are the small host protections? Why hasn't there been a clear rollout plan, grace period, or pathway for low-income Jamaicans to become compliant without losing their only income stream? Instead, the message is, comply or get out. Bottom line, is this really about tourism or control? This bill might help organize the short-term rental market, but if it's passed without safeguards for small property owners, it could worsen the housing crisis, push locales out of their own communities, silence a growing class of independent entrepreneurs. The question isn't whether Airbnb should be regulated. The question is who gets to participate in Jamaica's tourism economy and who gets pushed aside to make room for resorts. And if ordinary Jamaicans are being sacrificed to protect hotel profits, then this bill isn't progress, it's betrayal. So we've seen how Airbnbs are changing the housing landscape, bringing in tourists, boosting income for some homeowners, but also reducing the number of long-term rental options for locals. But here's the bigger picture. Many landlords are now thinking about housing more like a business than a home. If tourists are willing to pay in US dollars for a short-term stay, why not extend that mindset to long-term rentals too? That's why more and more homes are being rented, and even sold, in US dollars. For average Jamaicans earning in Jamaican dollars, this is a huge challenge. Even if a house is available, it might not be financially accessible. When you put it together, Airbnbs and USD-priced rentals are two sides of the same coin. Both are driven by tourism, foreign currency, and investors seeking maximum profit. And both raise the same urgent question. If housing is increasingly geared toward tourists and foreign buyers, where does that leave ordinary Jamaicans? Now let's zoom in on the second issue: USD rentals and property sales. Across the island, it's becoming common for landlords to price homes in US dollars, even long-term rentals. Some property listings for everyday Jamaicans are now advertised in USD, creating a situation where earning in Jamaican dollars simply doesn't cut it. This trend is also affecting property sales. Homes that might have been affordable a few years ago are now priced in foreign currency, often targeting overseas buyers or diaspora Jamaicans. For locals, this creates real consequences: fewer affordable homes, rising rents, and increased financial pressure on families. Combined with Airbnbs taking up more housing, the effect is clear. The housing market is slowly shifting away from serving ordinary Jamaicans. More and more houses across the island are being listed in US dollars, not just in Kingston or Montego Bay, but now in parishes like Trelawney and St. Anne. But here's the thing: most Jamaicans are still earning Jamaican dollars. So who exactly are these homes really for? Real estate agents and private landlords alike have begun pricing houses and apartments in USD, bypassing the Jamaican dollar entirely. It's not uncommon to find a modest home or studio apartment listed for $1,000 to $2,500 US dollars per month, amounts well beyond the reach of the average Jamaican worker. While some might argue this has been happening for years in tourist-heavy areas, the scale and scope of this practice is what's concerning. It's no longer confined to upscale urban centers. Rural parishes are also experiencing the same trend. Trelawney, St. Mary, even pockets of Clarendon. The minimum wage versus the minimum rent. Let's put it into perspective. The minimum wage in Jamaica stands at 16,000 Jamaican dollars per week. That's around 832,000 Jamaican dollars per year, or roughly 5,000 US dollars annually. That wouldn't even cover 3 months' rent in some of these USD-priced properties. Even middle-class Jamaicans, nurses, teachers, civil servants, are finding themselves priced out of their own country. Many have resorted to moving back in with relatives, delaying homeownership, or turning to informal rental arrangements in overcrowded conditions. I checked a place last week, FI 1,300 US dollars. I just closed the tab. One young professional shared. That's more than my whole monthly pay. Greed or currency protection? Landlords argue that the fluctuating Jamaican dollar makes it hard to plan financially. With inflation and the rising cost of living, pegging rent and sale prices to USD provides a sense of security. And some aren't wrong. Many property owners are repaying USD mortgages or paying school fees abroad. But where does that leave the Jamaican population? This raises ethical questions. Should housing, a basic human right, be treated like a stock investment? Should foreign investors and diaspora buyers be prioritized over locals who live and work on the island? Has the profit motive completely overtaken community building? What's the government doing? The answer, for now, appears to be very little. Despite ongoing complaints and calls for intervention, there has been no meaningful legislation to regulate the practice. There's no law preventing landlords from charging in foreign currency, nor is there any significant effort to create affordable housing stock that reflects local incomes. Successive administrations have made promises, but tangible results remain limited. In the meantime, more young Jamaicans are contemplating migration, not for better opportunities, but simply for a place to live. Who is Jamaica being built for? At its core, this is more than a real estate issue. It's a social justice crisis. If Jamaicans can't afford to live in Jamaica, who is the country being built for? The average citizen, who earns in Jamaican dollars and contributes to the economy daily, is increasingly shut out of basic housing access. Families are being displaced, communities are becoming fractured, and the gap between rich and poor continues to widen. This is not sustainable. This is not fair. This is not home for many anymore. So when you look at the full picture, AirBnBs, USD rentals, and property sales, a pattern emerges. The influence of foreign money and tourism is reshaping Jamaica's housing market, often at the expense of locals. The big question we have to ask is, what kind of housing market do we want? Should the government step in more aggressively to protect Jamaicans, or is this just the new reality of a globalized economy? I want to hear from you. Are Airbnbs and USD rentals making it harder for everyday Jamaicans to live in their own country? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a conversation. Thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful, give it a like, subscribe for more coverage on Jamaica's real estate and economic issues, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. See you next time!